Patriots. It's Kerry here. Okay, so why pick on Colonel Douglas MacGregor? Why call him out? You say, what's he ever done to you? And basically, I don't appreciate where I go on these podcasts and people bring him up when you research this stuff and you put your time into it and you put thought into it, and then people just bring up some idiot who doesn't seem to pay attention at all, but is clearly being paid to say a certain thing and is given a platform really above everything else, where their lies drown out just about everything else. And it's also under a guise of some kind of alt media. Like, this is a dissident thought, where if you disagree with this person and their narrative that is being pushed, people will say you just blindly agree with the mainstream media. You just listen to whatever the TV tells you to do. But this person's on Tucker Carlson, and that's where I found out a lot of people get this stuff. And it's been since the war really began. And just for examples, with MacGregor, this guy, so during when the Ukrainians did the Kherson offensive, the whole time MacGregor was talking about the Russians were being on an offensive to Odessa in the same place, but he had zero connection with reality and what was going on. And there was a lot of compelling drama around this river and bridges, but MacGregor had no idea. He just insisted that Ukrainians already lost. It's nothing matters. Russians are going to Odessa, and moreover, MacGregor insisted that they can't lose. It's a existential battle for Russia. So Russia won't exist if they don't push to Odessa and make a landlock Ukraine. This is just something that he looked at on a map and thought seemed correct, and probably spent about two minutes on. Or someone just told him what to say, which is just as likely. But the gist of it, he didn't really work out a lot of details. He never seems to pay attention to what's going on the battlefield in terms of maps and things, even on the Russian side, because there are some Russian and pro-Russian types, military bloggers and things who get it more or less correct, and you can get facts from. But MacGregor doesn't seem to listen to these people either. And in fact, that seems a kind of quasi dissent in Russia. But nevertheless, these people are pro-Russia. But MacGregor is just a line that Putin can do anything, and he's all powerful, and any setbacks are just him being merciful and kind, sparing civilian casualties, unlike the US. And this is despite reality. It's not even really that intelligent to hold up your army to spare civilian casualties. The US doesn't do it because the idea is just move fast, push fast. And I think you could really see really something like Iraq, where the whole country is taken in 3 weeks, is way more merciful to anybody involved. I mean, but it's just absurd that that this army's taking huge casualties and just isn't pushing forward because they don't feel like it. But from the beginning, people said kind of absurd things or say these are just the Russians' worst troops and so on, their worst equipment first, even though nobody really realistically does this stuff. But the same people will push pretty much anything to explain why the Russians just aren't living up to what you would have really figured. I mean, it's been about 10 years of listening to people with kind of a Russia pro-Putin bent who would say that the Russian military is being modernized and that it's a real it'll be a real challenge to the U.S. that this stuff, their weapons are better, their troops are harder, and I never thought it seemed realistic. But at the same time, what can you say? You you can't disprove it, so you just listen, and then you wait until there's a real war, and that's when you have to prove things. And the Russians proved immediately that these claims were kind of a fraud and that their military had not modernized, that it had kind of mimicked the US military. It had kind of mimicked NATO in a lot of ways, but it isn't really there. The tech is not there. They're not capable. And in performance and training, they can't organize and coordinate in really any comparable way. And you've seen that right from the beginning. Like I said, I started doing, people ask me to do podcasts, going back, just asking me about Iraq type stuff and my experience. And I've been on a few of these shows, and one show in particular, I dropped a lot of Iraq testimony. This is about, and people really like that. And then other things, but then with Ukraine, people aren't loving it so much because what certain people want to hear is one thing, and that's basically what MacGregor is telling them. Basically, people have itching ears. They don't care about reality. They want to be told that everything's going to collapse, and so on and so forth. Everything that comes with that, and why the U.S. is bad, and we can get into that, but it's just telling people exactly what they want to hear with no connection to what's going on, which is a huge missed opportunity because war is where you learn things. You look at like World War II, and it's interesting because you can kind of compare nations in a way and see, I mean, just realistically what people can do and who they are. And any war, I mean, that's just one that had a lot of people involved. But now there should be a lot to be learned about Russia. And in fact, so much of Russia has been revealed to be a fraud that I figured this would be and will still basically be a global revolution of sorts, just in terms of the Cold War static and this kind of fake polarization in politics and everything that's taken place since the Russian Revolution and since World War II, where geopolitics is kind of locked with Russia as it has been, and people push this kind of narrative in our country about what they have been, and now we can kind of see who these people really are in a way, and people should really take a good look. I don't buy that maybe it's you could say this is boring, or I don't care, or what's this have to do with me? Because if you're a man, you should know about the particulars of the modern battlefield and weapons and what they do, and in really any capacity of who you are. If you failed to do that, I don't know what to tell you, but you should do that. But you can't if you're not in touch with reality at all. You actually have to look at things, because war teaches us maybe things that we didn't expect. And I would have figured, and I did figure going into this war, that Russia would have just wiped the floor with Ukraine and would have taken the whole country in within 3 months. Just going on everything that has been hammered in your brain about Russia. And I think if people don't lie to themselves, everyone kind of would have figured that that Russia would have been able to wrap this whole thing up very quickly. And you look at the numbers, and Ukraine military wasn't that big at the time, was not that powerful. And the fact is that the Ukrainians did fight heroically and very impressively, to the point where we really hadn't been expecting it. We hadn't seen an ally really perform like that I mean, no one can really remember, because it just doesn't happen for us. We get proxies that don't work out typically. But in Ukraine, I mean, you have to pay attention to what's going on, and you could see the opportunity available for everybody. I mean, whoever defends the West gets to control it. I don't care what anyone says. If you fight, you get power. And we see who's doing the fighting now, and we could see how the winds are going to change because of this. Unless they can just throw this into just throw a total wrench in the gears of the whole war effort, which is the other reason why MacGregor needs to be called out, because he's really about the worst person in the media, just in terms of someone who's really actually killing people with his words. Your words have consequence and meaning to it, and in reality, you could see how this one person, and really a lot of people behind him, can twist the minds of quite a few people. And when you're a colonel and you're just telling lies like this, and it's not like he's just messed up or has a weird opinion. He's not paying attention, clearly, and from the beginning, it's just nothing but the same thing, with no, I mean, there's no nuance or detail. He can't give you any particulars. He's just saying what, I mean, this is a person who probably has significant gambling debt or whatever that makes him so desperate to get this hookup from Russia, which there's a lot of other people like that too. But it's not that funny when you're just telling somebody in the guise of some kind of national security expert analysis, that you're just telling baloney. You're filling the heads of my own people with just nonsense, and people keep on hitting me up with the same stuff, and I know exactly where it's coming from, because it's coming from a centralized place. This isn't something people would gather just from looking at it. And there's certain things that I think any kind of soldier would figure out. And MacGregor has some experience with in the army, where you should be able to tell the difference between even any kind of footage. You could see body language of troops. That you're gonna look a little different moving in than you do moving out, advancing than retreating, And so, not that you need experience to figure that out, but it's inescapable if you've seen it. MacGregor never commanded troops, of course. Um, he did not command the Battle of 73 Easting. He wrote a book. He wrote accounts about it. But MacGregor he was an operations officer. It's not the commanding officer of the brigade. They never would let MacGregor command a brigade. And which is another thing, he's probably a bit disgruntled. He did have certain particular ideas in the Army. He wanted to shape the Army more like the Marine Corps. He wrote a book about this, and people found it thoughtful at the time, but this is fanciful, theoretical stuff, more or less. I've seen pro-Russian people say that MacGregor commanded Operation Desert Storm, that they think he's Norman Schwarzkopf, who's turned around and supports Russia now. This is an operations officer. When I was about to get out of the Marines, I spent the last few months in a regimental operations. I mean, this is headquarters. If you're in operations, it's called the S3. That's called in the Marines. That's H&S, and this isn't. He's not commanding the unit. He'll say, "Oh, well, he's the operations guy. It means he planned it. He masterminded it. Not really. It means he got the pens and the maps and whatnot. Like I said, I was in Korea and with a regimental S3, just waiting to get out. But I walked the DMZ with Colonel McCoy, but this is not that was not the operations officer. There was another guy who, I mean, he wasn't a very big deal, and MacGregor was not a very big deal. But it's easy to pull the wool over on people's eyes when you describe it a certain way. Like, he makes that battle out to be the biggest battle of the entire Desert Storm, and he puts himself in, like, he commanded it, but he did not command it. MacGregor, he should know better. He's not just telling an honest opinion that's wrong. It's really, I mean, just purposefully filling people's heads with complete baloney. I don't think it's that funny. I just think that it should be called out, and I've run into it so many times that I just figured I would. I'm not a podcaster. People ask me to do podcasts, so I have a microphone and I can keep talking. And I figure there's a certain principle here where if you see something, it says in the Bible, in the book of Ezekiel, where if the watchman he sees something, he sees this danger come upon these people, he doesn't say anything, then this blood is upon him. But if you say something, then you're free of it. And so I'm just gonna say it. I don't think I don't care if anybody agrees, because I know how many people don't agree. Because however many people will just say, they'll just repeat what MacGregor says, and they'll say, you just believe whatever the TV tells you to do. No, I don't believe whatever the TV tells me to do. I've been in these same dumb circles for longer than you, and I know a little better. People are very dumb. They're squandering every opportunity that they have here. A war is a good opportunity, and just by getting in league with the same people who have always spread the same kind of lies, because Russia has always done the same thing, and there's always been a large dissident presence in America that's beholden to Russian influence, and it's the same thing. And it's not good for us. It has never been. And going back to maybe the 60s, you could figure how things could go differently if it wasn't the Russian influence and the in the media, and just um what the Russians are saying and the narratives that they're going off of, and people just bounce off that. At a certain point, people ought to start wising up. I mean, it's easy to say that, but the there's an opportunity here where people can kind of free themselves from this delusion that Russia is a certain thing. That if they win, it'll change everything. They're not going to win. I hate to tell you that, but by every they haven't taken control of much of that country, and they're getting driven back. And unlike what MacGregor says, that Putin can carpet bomb anything at any time, he can't really do it. The Russian planes can't really get through the Ukrainian air defenses. They're not pulling like all this wild weasel stuff that we do, which is the first thing that the U.S. would do, is just take out every all the anti-aircraft. But Russia hasn't been able to do it. What does that tell you? They can't just fly over and bomb everything, or otherwise they would be over by Lviv every day bombing the supplies of weapons coming into the country. It doesn't make sense to, we're going to be merciful and let you do all this stuff to kill our troops in the meantime, because we want to negotiate. It's not happening. Nobody is that stupid. The U.S. has gotten ourselves into similarly stupid things, but not that stupid. I mean, anybody can kind of see this stuff. Even ISIS had the strategic know-how to see, like with Kobani, they saw that they needed to take that city to stop the U.S. from bringing stuff in. If they get a foothold, they're just going to keep expanding it. So they figured if they could stamp that out, it would have done them great. And it would have, but they couldn't do it. But they had the strategic thought to do it. The Russians don't really seem to have that. Their battle plans are not good. They don't seem to have any thrust to them. They just kind of glom from every direction, and it's not getting them very far. I don't need to keep on going over that too much. The point is, MacGregor says they just want to spare civilians. They could do whatever they want. They could bomb it all. They've already killed the whole Ukrainian military. Weapons won't change anything. That's another thing he says, that it won't change anything. You send more weapons in, it won't change anything. And that's proven to not be true. And it's not hard to figure that out. So you're telling people bad advice, that weapons don't change anything. And it's a lot of, if you kind of follow this stuff, you're going to kind of look at things different, and you're going to learn all the wrong lessons. I think the people who are pro-Russian, if they found themselves into like a war where they had to figure things out on like a battlefield, they'd probably try to emulate Russia in certain ways and just get creamed and be really confused about what happened, because they were using the best tactics that they learned from masterminds like MacGregor or so on, or MacGregor told them that these are the guys to pay attention to, and this is the stuff you should do if you're all powerful, is very bad advice. The guy's not good. It's been a real headache, I think. Just where it was, what about what this guy says? And it's wasting a lot of time, because as far as I'm concerned, we could have gotten much further with all the stuff without these kind of squabbles created by troublesome people. And now, I mean, now this kind of stuff is dominating. So you, the Trump stuff is on Tucker Carlson, and however many people, every kind of boomer, there's however many boomers will just they'll just say that the war isn't real, or they've never seen footage of it. And how could this even be real when they've never even seen footage of it? I mean, and that's very purposeful. And you can watch MacGregor on Tucker Carlson, but you won't see any footage. It is what, I mean, that seems pretty clear, I think, because otherwise these people would have seen some footage. There's no point, though, if you're just listening to a guy who's just, it's already over. There's no point. The banks are going to collapse, and Ukrainians can't win. Weapons don't matter, and also get Bitcoin, and BRICS is going to be backed by gold, and so on and so forth. That's not. It just doesn't. I mean, you could see how that it's just blinded a good deal of people, and then beyond that, they just hate Zelensky, hate Ukraine. The war is fake. The money's being laundered, and everything kind of stems from this. And it's kind of lies, and then a lack of curiosity, and then people just start making stuff up. And I don't really appreciate it. Just I would rather live in reality, and I find all this stuff very irritating. And it has been a revelation of sorts for me, just finding out how full of beans other people are. And you see how many people are maybe beholden to nonsense when they should be able to identify it. Or if you think they have a certain IQ, I don't think you need military experience to see this stuff. I think I could see it unquestionably, because I can't not. I mean, like I said, with Russia going into Ukraine, I figured they were going to win, but within really within the first week, and then by like 2 weeks in, super clear, not going to happen. The plan was all wrong, and so on and so forth. Everything, I talked to a lot of people on the phone about all this stuff. I talked to people on shows, and I figured people would see it a lot more clear. Some people are now seeing it more clearly, but it's taken a while. A lot of it's just been through just total disinformation and just people telling lies. Anyhow, that's about it on just the why these people should be called out, and why I will be continuing to call them out, because this isn't very hard to do, and I'm just going to keep on doing it, because there's just so much nonsense that I see otherwise. It's easier for me to just put a video out and say you could have watched it and gotten a good opinion, than just spending all my time dealing with just complete foolish people, which has been a lot of it. And I'm sure, just like when I've done other shows, I'll get negative feedback, but it's easy enough to tune that out. Or, but anyhow, that's about all I got. I'll be back. I'll be making more videos. All right, Patriots. Thank you. And please subscribe and so on and so forth.